Everyone says beach retirement is dead. Too expensive, too risky, too late. But here's the weird part. Some US beach towns are getting cheaper, more stable, and quietly better set up for retirees. But only if you stop following the hype. That's the problem. Most people chase the postcard and ignore the math until taxes, insurance, or boredom taps them on the shoulder. So today, we're going where the data leads. Not the trends, not the Instagram beaches. The places that still make financial sense. Surprisingly, one of these towns rebuilt itself after disaster and came out cheaper. Another benefits from being ignored. Wait till you see number 3. Are you retiring for vibes or survival? Like the video if you enjoy uncomfortable financial truths. Subscribe now. It's cheaper than learning this the hard way. Let's break it down. Number 10. Gulfport, Mississippi, the beach town that looks like paradise. Until you notice the storm shutters. Population, about 70,000. Median home price, just under $200,000. Crime stats. Let's just say the headlines get your attention before the coastline does. But here's the twist. This is exactly why some retirees are quietly plotting their escape from the overhyped coasts. Gulfport is the paradoxical cocktail of affordable beachfront and real-world headache. Hurricanes knocked out infrastructure not once, but several times. Yet rebuilding codes have turned the disaster zone into a strangely stable retirement prospect. Cost of living sits about 12% below the national average. Rent? You can snag a 2-bedroom for $950 a month if you don't mind the occasional pelican inspecting your balcony. Job market is small, but surprisingly diverse. Shipping, healthcare, and tourism quietly anchor the economy. The emotional math is weird. On one hand, you've got sunsets and seafood for lunch. On the other, you're constantly reminded that nature, and Murphy's Law, likes to keep you humble. The irony? Survivors of Katrina and later storms actually made this town safer than Florida beach towns that never faced the test. Financial sense isn't glamorous. It's gritty, weathered, and weirdly satisfying. And honestly, can we talk about the mosquito situation? These things are basically freelance pest consultants charging by the blood meal. You'll learn to respect them, or invest in industrial-strength citronella. Either way, you adapt. That's retirement math in the South for you. And if you think Gulfport's mix of risk and reward is wild, wait until we hit number 9, where affordability comes with an even stranger twist. Number 9. Port Angeles, Washington. Port Angeles, Washington. Population, roughly 20,000, give or take a seagull or two. Known as the gateway to Olympic National Park, it's the town people drive through thinking, nice mountains, but where's the action? Most retirees dismiss it because, let's be honest, the sun is shy here. Rain? Oh, it's committed. But here's the twist. Those gray skies might just be your financial best friend. Cost of living clocks in about 7% below the national average. Housing prices hover around $280,000 median for a single-family home. And rents? You can score a 2-bedroom for roughly $1,200. Crime is lower than the national average, surprisingly, given how quiet the streets are at night. Perfect if you like not being mugged while walking your poodle. Jobs are limited, sure, but healthcare access punches above its weight for a town this size. And grocery prices? Shockingly reasonable, unless you're addicted to artisanal kale. The emotional math is subtle. You get mountains, beaches, and hiking trails, but you also get drizzle as a full-time roommate. The irony? That gloom keeps out the Instagram hordes and keeps housing from skyrocketing. Retirees who lean into the gray find their budgets stretch further than anywhere in the Pacific Northwest Sunshine Belt. Stability comes disguised as dreary weather, and suddenly, what nobody tells you is, the clouds are your wallet's best friend. And yes, the mosquitoes have apparently unionized. They bite in shifts, get coffee breaks, and are absolutely relentless. You'll learn to either carry bug spray like a sacred talisman or develop a minor phobia of anything with wings. Also, can we talk about the rain puddles? It's like the entire city secretly turned the streets into shallow lakes. You step off the curb thinking it's a small puddle, and suddenly your shoe is auditioning for Port Angeles Underwater Edition. If you ever wanted to feel like a tiny amphibian while grocery shopping, this is your town. Quick question. Would you rather retire somewhere sunny and expensive, or gray, rainy, and financially smart? Comment yes for sun, no for clouds. And if you think Port Angeles has quirky weather and hidden financial perks, just wait until number 8, where disaster actually makes the town smarter for retirees. Number 8. Pascagoula, Mississippi. Pascagoula, Mississippi. Population, roughly 22,000. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, most retirees haven't either. Known primarily for shipbuilding and seafood, it's the kind of town that quietly hums while everyone else chases beaches with Instagram filters. Expect a mix of industrial backbone, modest neighborhoods, and, well, a shoreline that doesn't scream luxury. But here's the twist. That very anonymity might be exactly what your retirement portfolio needs. Crime rates are slightly above the national average, but nothing dramatic if you avoid moonlit shortcuts through the industrial district. Median home prices hover around $165,000. Cost of living sits about 15% below the US average, and rent for a two-bedroom apartment averages $900. Job market? Anchored by Ingalls shipbuilding, healthcare, and logistics. Quality of life is surprisingly stable. Quiet streets, decent schools, and yes, enough seafood to fuel a lifetime of questionable dietary choices. The emotional math is weirdly satisfying. You get a coastal town that refuses to be trendy, which keeps prices down and your stress levels lower than the local tide. The irony? The shipyard hum that keeps the town alive also keeps it invisible to speculators. Retirees here are quietly winning without realizing they're in the small-town version of a cheat code. And seriously, if you're worried about excitement, the local seagulls have a more aggressive social calendar than half the town. They'll dive-bomb your sandwich like performance artists with zero shame. And can we talk about the traffic lights? 3 main intersections in town, and each one has its own personality. One is permanently broken, one is powered by pure hope, and the last one just randomly turns red when you're late for brunch. It's like the city council hired a sadistic algorithm for urban planning. Fun fact, Pascagoula's nickname is the Upside Down, but only because every time a hurricane passes, your umbrella files for divorce. Seriously, grab the data, but keep the raincoat handy. Remember how Gulfport turned disaster into financial sense? Pascagoula quietly stole that playbook, without the hype, without the crowds. And if you thought Pascagoula's invisible charm was subtle, wait until number 7, where disaster, industry, and affordability collide in a way that might make you rethink coastal living entirely. Number 7. Coos Bay, Oregon. Coos Bay, Oregon. Population, roughly 16,000. Small enough that everybody knows your business. Big enough that your business can actually employ people. It's historically a timber and shipping town, with a coastline that's Instagram approved. If you like fog, wind, and occasional rogue seagulls. Retirees often glance at it and think, cute, but do I survive the rain? The twist? That rain is secretly the cheapest thing you'll ever pay for stability. Cost of living runs about 10% below the US average. Median home price, around $230,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom averages $1,100. Crime? Slightly higher than the national average, but mostly petty theft and traffic violations. Not the end-of-the-world kind. The job market is anchored by ports, timber, and healthcare, which keeps property values reasonable and infrastructure intact. Schools are decent, hospitals are accessible, and there's enough seafood to fuel a lifetime of questionable culinary choices. Emotionally, Coos Bay is the kind of town that sneaks under your radar, then slowly grows on you. You get beaches and mountains without the crowd, or the inflated coastal prices of, say, Santa Cruz. Ironically, the same industry smoke that keeps the economy humming also keeps tourists away. Retirees here are basically exploiting the city's industrial hum as a low-key financial cheat code. Stability disguised as fog, surprisingly satisfying. And yes, the seagulls here are basically freelance ninjas. They'll swoop, they'll dive, and if you leave a sandwich unattended, consider it a donation to local wildlife. Also, can we discuss the streetlights? Some are perfectly aligned, others flicker like they're auditioning for a horror movie. You turn a corner at night and suddenly wonder if the city just wants you to feel alive, or slightly haunted. It's like urban planning met improv comedy and decided, close enough. Coos Bay is stable, predictable, and slightly damp. Unlike the flashy, crime-spiking tourist towns further south, where a beachfront condo can cost more than your retirement fund. And if you think Coos Bay's blend of affordability and foggy charm is unusual, just wait until number 6, where art, planning, and a little flood magic collide to create a retirement paradox you won't see coming. Number 6. Bay Street, Louis, Mississippi. Bay Street, Louis, Mississippi. Population around 12,000, if you include the seagulls that patrol the shoreline. Known for charming historic districts, art galleries, and a small-town vibe that whispers, you could actually retire here and be okay with it. The twist? Charming also comes with hurricanes, gentrification, and a locals-only attitude that'll make you second-guess your map app. Cost of living? About 13% below the US average. Median home price, $225,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom hovers around $1,100. Crime is slightly higher than the national average, mostly petty theft and traffic annoyances. Job market, small but anchored by tourism, arts, and local services. Quality of life? Stunning sunsets, galleries, seafood joints, and somehow, a quiet energy that makes you forget about the occasional hurricane alert. Emotionally, Bay St. Louis is a paradox. You get quaint streets and cultural charm, but you also inherit a subtle reminder that nature can be dramatic. Ironically, it's this mix of beauty and unpredictability that keeps housing affordable and retirees' wallets from screaming. The town rewards patience, curiosity, and a weird tolerance for occasional tropical chaos. And yes, the Pelicans here are basically freelance lifeguards with attitude. They'll swoop, they'll judge your sandwich choice, and they take their jobs very seriously. Also, can we talk about the tiny streets? You think you're driving down a charming lane, then suddenly your car fits like a clown in a Mini Cooper. Every turn feels like a subtle test of your spatial awareness and patience. Add in a stray cat or two, and suddenly you're negotiating traffic like it's an Olympic sport. Picture yourself strolling past pastel bungalows, the smell of salt water in the air, a local jazz band playing somewhere down the pier, and realizing your retirement budget actually stretches further than expected. And if you think Bay St. Louis is quaint and quirky, the next place somehow turned extreme weather into a retirement advantage nobody saw coming. Number 5. Astoria, Oregon. Astoria, Oregon. Population just under 10,000, but you'd swear it's doubled thanks to the tourists hunting Instagrammable fog. Famous for its Victorian architecture, seafood, and the Goonies, yes, that Goonies, Astoria seems like a quaint postcard. But here's the twist. The charm comes with drizzle, economic quirks, and a very particular local vibe that might make you question whether you're moving to heaven or a slightly soggy purgatory. Cost of living? About 8% below the national average. Median home price? $280,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom apartment averages $1,200. Crime rate is slightly above the US average, mostly petty theft and a dash of car break-ins. Job market, small but anchored by tourism, fishing, and light manufacturing. Quality of life? Stunning river views, easy access to the coast, local breweries, but yes, rain, lots of it. The emotional math is subtle. You get history, culture, and natural beauty, but you also get a town that refuses to be flashy, which keeps housing affordable and your retirement fund intact. Ironically, the drizzle and fog that make tourists moan actually keep Astoria calm, peaceful, and weirdly financially smart. And yes, the seagulls here have PhDs in street harassment. They will stalk your lunch like it owes them money. Also, can we talk about the wind tunnels? Walking downtown feels like a low-budget obstacle course. You turn a corner, a newspaper attacks your ankle, an umbrella flips inside out, and suddenly you're negotiating physics just to get to the coffee shop. If you've ever wanted cardio combined with mild trauma, Astoria delivers. Picture yourself sipping a latte, fog curling off the river, historic homes all around, and realizing your retirement budget actually stretches farther than anywhere else on the Oregon coast. The drizzle doesn't ruin the moment, it frames it. Compared to a flashy, overpriced beach town like Cannon Beach, Astoria is affordable, quirky, and just dangerous enough to feel alive without emptying your bank account. Would you rather retire somewhere sunny and overpriced, or foggy, quirky, and financially smart? Comment yes for sun, no for fog. Number 4. Rockland, Maine. Rockland, Maine. Population? About 7,000. Small enough that the town feels like one giant postcard. Big enough to have more lobsters than Starbucks. Known for its working waterfront, art scene, and the annual lobster festival, Rockland screams coastal charm. But here's the catch. Charming towns can be expensive, and this one hides a quirky tension between tourist season chaos and quiet winter doldrums. Median home price, $285,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom runs about $1,200 a month. Cost of living is roughly on par with the US average. Crime is low, but traffic during summer festivals? Let's just say the lobsters aren't the only things feeling pinched. Job market, anchored by fishing, tourism, healthcare, and small-scale manufacturing. Quality of life, stunning sea views, seafood to die for, and a cultural scene that punches above its weight. But winter winds will make you question your sanity if you're used to sun. Emotionally, living in Rockland is like sipping a perfectly brewed cup of coffee while staring at crashing waves. Sometimes blissful, sometimes bracing. The charm keeps property values strong and gives retirees a sense of security. Ironically, the same festivals that make tourists flood the streets also fund local infrastructure and keep the town alive, quietly balancing affordability with authenticity. And yes, if you think Maine's wildlife is chill, prepare to be dive-bombed by seagulls that operate like miniature Navy SEALs. They're small, but deadly serious about their territory. And the wind, seriously, walking downtown in December is a test of willpower. Your scarf becomes a projectile, your umbrella files for divorce, and suddenly, you're rethinking your fashion choices while questioning physics. It's like nature decided to turn daily errands into extreme sports. Picture yourself on the breakwater, waves lapping at your feet, the smell of salt and lobster in the air, a small cafe behind you, and realizing your retirement budget stretches just far enough to let this be your daily view. Feels almost unfair how good it is. And if you think Rockland's charm is irresistible, the next city somehow turned industrial grit and coastal chaos into a surprisingly smart retirement play. Number 3. Brunswick, Georgia. Brunswick, Georgia. Population around 16,000, plus an impressive shrimp fleet that basically runs on caffeine and determination. Known for its historic downtown, southern charm, and low-key beaches, Brunswick seems like the retirement jackpot you didn't know existed. But hold on, there's always a but, right? The charm comes with quirks, from unpredictable weather to local traffic patterns that make GPS feel like a cruel joke. Cost of living? About 10% below the US average. Median home price, $230,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom apartment, $1,050. Crime is slightly higher than average, mostly petty theft and a sprinkle of property crime. Job market, anchored in shipping, tourism, and healthcare. Quality of life? Warm climate, southern hospitality, waterfront walks. But brace yourself for summer humidity that makes you question your life choices daily. Emotionally, Brunswick feels like that friend who's quietly brilliant but a little messy. You get culture, access to the coast, and affordability, but you also inherit quirks that remind you life is never perfect. Ironically, the same hot, sticky summers that make you curse your wardrobe also keep property prices reasonable for retirees. And yes, if you thought traffic in your city was bad, try dodging golf carts, pelicans, and the occasional tourist convoy in a town designed before GPS existed. And don't get me started on the mosquitoes. These are not your garden variety pests. They're more like tiny helicopters trained in guerrilla warfare. Step outside for 5 minutes, and you'll be negotiating your own survival while trying to enjoy a porch swing. It's a package deal with southern charm, beauty, warmth, and an unspoken blood donation requirement. Picture yourself strolling along the waterfront at sunset, shrimp baskets in one hand, iced tea in the other, moss-draped oaks swaying in the breeze, and realizing your retirement budget stretches farther than you ever expected. Suddenly, those quirks feel like character. And if you think Brunswick is a charming southern secret, the next place somehow mixed hurricane risk with financial sense in a way nobody saw coming. Number 2. Port Lavaca, Texas. Population roughly 12,000, which means everyone knows your business, and your neighbor probably borrowed your lawnmower last month. Famous for fishing, coastal living, and shrimp, it's basically a seafood and sunshine retirement combo platter. At first glance, it seems like the perfect small-town escape from the chaos of city life. But of course, the devil is in the details. Cost of living? About 8% below the national average. Median home price? $195,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom? $900 a month. Crime? Lower than the US average, but petty theft and seasonal tourist mischief happen. Job market? Anchored in shipping, healthcare, and a sprinkle of tourism. Quality of life? Stunning Gulf views, quiet streets, and seafood that makes you wonder why anyone ever ate fast food. But summer heat and humidity will make your AC unit beg for mercy. Emotionally, Port Lavaca is like your favorite fishing rod. Reliable, low maintenance, and occasionally gets you tangles you didn't expect. You can stretch your retirement dollars farther here than most coastal towns, but you also inherit quirky small-town politics, occasional hurricane warnings, and the kind of heat that makes you question why humans ever evolved without built-in AC. And yes, if you thought Texas drivers were a mild hazard, imagine dodging pickup trucks, pelicans, and the occasional tourist who thinks a one-lane road is a suggestion, not a rule. And can we talk about mosquitoes? These aren't your lazy backyard bugs. They're tiny flying bodyguards for the Gulf. Step outside at sunset and suddenly your skin becomes a point-based snack menu. Bring a hat, bug spray, and a sense of humor, or just stay inside and call it a day. Picture yourself on a fishing pier at sunrise, the water calm, your line in the Gulf, iced tea in hand. The town is quiet except for gulls and gentle waves. Suddenly, your retirement budget feels like a superhero cape, protective, empowering, and way underappreciated. And if you think Port Lavaca is laid back, the next city somehow made financial sense, coastal beauty, and charm collide in a way that almost feels unfair. Wait till you see it. Number 1. New Bedford, Massachusetts. New Bedford, Massachusetts, known as the Whaling City, but don't worry, you won't need a harpoon to retire here. Population, around 95,000, a working-class port town that still smells faintly of salt and lobster traps. At first glance, it's a gritty industrial waterfront. Historic, charming, but not exactly Cape Cod quaint. Perfect for someone who wants coastal living without selling a kidney to afford it. Median home price? About $270,000. Rent for a two-bedroom? $1,200 a month. Cost of living? Slightly below the national average. Crime? Property crime hovers above the US average, but violent crime is low. Job market? Anchored in fishing, healthcare, and a few logistics companies. Quality of life? Waterfront views, historic architecture, and one of the best Portuguese bakeries this side of the Atlantic. But winter winds will slap you awake, and parking downtown feels like an extreme sport. Emotionally, living here is like a perfectly seared scallop. A little rough around the edges, but rich, rewarding, and oddly satisfying. Your money goes farther than most other East Coast coastal towns, but brace yourself for the occasional seagull attack and the brutal wind tunnels on waterfront streets. And yes, winter lasts roughly 27 minutes longer than you thought possible. Bundle up, because your car heater will become your new best friend. Seriously, who decided parking meters needed to be diagonal? You'll spend 5 minutes contorting like a yoga instructor just to wedge your car between two imaginary lines. And don't get me started on the seagulls. They're basically the unofficial city council, and they don't negotiate. Now picture this. It's sunset over the harbor. The smell of fresh lobster rolls hits your nose, and you've got a coffee in hand watching boats bob on the water. Quiet, salty, and surprisingly affordable. Your retirement budget suddenly feels like it has a pulse. Living here is like being part of a quirky fishing sitcom. You know everyone, the seafood is ridiculous, and yes, the wind will judge your life choices. New Bedford, where you can retire on a budget, eat like royalty, and still learn that seagulls are basically the city's tiny, feathered sheriffs. If you love weirdly charming coastal towns that won't bankrupt you, this is your jam. Hit subscribe or risk making your next retirement decision without this insider intel, and that's a gamble even a seagull wouldn't take.